Здравствуйте. Привет. Can you guys see my sparklies? Ooh, look at the sparklies, so pretty. Welcome to my channel, yay! Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about my experience with being fitted, a virtual fitting for Gaynor Mindens. I've had my eye on Gaynor Mindens ever since I found out that my favorite ballerina of all time, Svetlana Zakharova, that's what she wears. So obviously if I got the same shoes as she wears, you know, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to dance as good as her. It's like, you know, if you get Air Jordans, right, you become Michael Jordan. That's how that works, right? Yeah, it's a very divisive issue among dancers and fitters. Usually you're either very pro or very against. It's kind of I would say the candy corn of pointe shoes. Yeah, people have very strong opinions about them. Basically, for the traditional pointe shoe, you have to break them in. They're very hard and stiff when you get them, and then eventually they die. You know, they become very soft and they don't support you anymore. With Gaynor Mindens, they last way longer. What they're made of, the material, it doesn't break down. Yeah, they're a little bit more expensive, but they last a lot longer. And you don't have to actually break them in. Once you get them, you're good to go. And if you ever seen like the videos of, I've seen the one, I think Tyler Peck, in her documentary that she released a couple years ago.
So how many pointe shoes do you think you go through in a year?
Oh gosh. Well, I can tell you like during a week, I would go through 10 pairs of shoes.
More than a shoe a day?
Yeah, it depends on what you're dancing, but I like a newer pair of shoe for every single show that I do.
You'll see her like bang, bang, bang. Oh, that was loud. Like that, basically. On the ground. Like that, just to get them, you know, soft enough to wear on stage and not be too noisy. When I wore these to my last session with Eric Conrad in Las Vegas, he told me to like take them over, you know, bar and just like bend them so like, you know, so that they are more conformed to the shape of my foot. But with Gaynor Mindens, you don't have to do that. They come already perfect. I don't know. We'll see. Apparently, they are God's gift to ballerina kind. So I'm very excited. I'll take you along for the journey. I have a meeting today with a fitter named Greer that I connected with on the Gaynor Minden website. Link below. I asked if it was okay to have the session taped so I could share on the YouTubes so you guys know what to expect. We'll take it from there.
All right, so Micah, before we get started, I'm going to ask you just some basic information. So what is your US ladies street shoe size?
It depends on the shoe, 8.5 to 9.
Okay, and what pointe shoes are you currently wearing?
So right now, my latest is the Greer or Nikolai Dream Point Pro.
Okay, what size are those?
So this will be a 6.5, and the width is 3X, and it's a medium flexible shrink.
Do you wear anything in your shoes? Any toe pads, spacers, toe caps, anything?
Yeah. So I've been experimenting, but typically I like to put in a spacer, like a big toe spacer, and I alternate between like the kind of pads. But yeah, I'll use like sometimes thicker. Sometimes I'll use these thin ones depending on, you know, how swollen my feet are. So yeah.
How long have you been on pointe?
It was like a year before COVID that I was really like starting consistently. So all in all, maybe 3 years.
Okay. And how many hours a week would you say that you're typically on pointe?
It's been about actually 3 hours a week.
So I do want to see those pointe shoes on you, but before I do, I just want to take a look at your bare feet without any tights or socks or anything.
Sure. Like before COVID, I never even heard of Zoom, and now we're all basically pros at it.
I know, exactly. It's really saved us. Great, just stand in first for me. And tendu side with your right foot.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Great, and same thing with your other foot, tendu side. Great, and stand in parallel and tendu front towards the camera with your right foot. Great, same thing with your other foot, tendu front towards the camera. Great, now this is a little tricky, especially with a laptop, but if I could get kind of a bird's eye view, like what you see when you look down on your feet standing in parallel.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy you wear a spacer. I see you need a spacer between your first and second toes, so that's great.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you for showing me all of that.
Yeah.
So why don't you go ahead and put on your Nikolai Dream Points for me, along with whatever the spacers and toe pads you normally wear.
Sure.
Have you worn any other point shoes aside from the Nikolai Dream Point?
Yeah, I was first fitted in these, they were called they were blocks, they were European balance, which was not a particular, it was just too wide and like clunky of a shoe. It was like, I later found out that all my friends who were getting fitted, they were all putting them in the same shoe, and I was like, you know what are they, like, that's not a good fitting. If you're putting us all in the same shoe, that can't possibly be right.
Right.
And yeah, it wasn't a good fit.
Yeah, that's a pretty broad toe box.
Yeah. And then later I switched, and then I don't know, I just became really obsessed with like Russian stuff, right? So then I switched to Russian points because I thought that was like the most authentic Russian thing out there, but it's not actually. So then I switched to Grishko's.
What Russian points did you wear? Do you remember what Russian points you were?
Yeah, so the last pair that I had was the Rubins.
Okay, if you could put me kind of back down on ground level where you had the laptop before.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to get closer to your bar, that's perfect. Yep. Great, just like that. Stand facing the camera in first. Yep. And put just your right foot onto the platform of the shoe. Just put that one on point for me. Great. Okay, go ahead and come back down. Same thing with your other foot. Put that one up on a point for me. Now, Micah, can you bend down and pinch some satin at the back of the heel, or is there kind of skin tight fitting?
So this one's that's pretty tight.
Yeah. Is it same thing on your right foot? Are your feet kind of similar in size? You have a little bit more room in that one, it looks like.
Yeah, this one's a little smaller. My foot, I mean.
Right. Okay. Good to know. All right. Go up and point on both for me, all the way up in releve. Nice. Yeah. These look pretty. Yeah. Great. Go ahead and come back down, stand in parallel and go up in releve. All right, go ahead and come back down. Stand in second position in grand plie. That's when your feet are at their biggest, widest, most spread out. So grand plie, let me know if any of your toes are crunching or overlapping, or if everything is straight in the shoe.
I would definitely not want to go narrower than this. If anything, maybe a slightly wider fit, but because it is a little tight on the toes on my right. But overall,
but nothing, toes aren't overlapping, right? Nothing's like crossed.
No.
Okay. All right, great. And then last thing, if I can get just one more time that bird's eye view of your feet, like what you see looking down on your feet in parallel, just flat parallel.
Yeah. See it?
Yep, that is great. Okay, so move your camera a little bit more, like kind of towards your toes. Yep, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Is your drawstring tied? Like, have you like pulled it and tied the drawstring?
I did. My teacher last week said that I should retie the one on the right because it's not tight enough because she said I was
It's a
there's
little baggy on the sides, just
exactly, yeah.
an aesthetic thing. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you for showing me all that, Micah. You can go ahead and take those off and then we can discuss all my recommendations for you. So I'm going to tell you kind of a lot of information, but I'm going to email all this to you. So don't feel like you have to remember all of it because it's
Like,
kind of a lot.
Yeah.
I know it's kind of a lot, but so I'm sure you've done a little bit of research about our shoes. You said you've been looking into them for a while. So you already know that our shoes are so customizable because we can change so many different features about the shoe, right? So there's probably not just one Gaynor Minden Pointe shoe that's going to work for you. There's probably a couple of different things that would work for you. So I'm going to send you in my email of recommendations a few different options and then the timeline of how long it would take to receive those if you did want to order them from us. So first thing about our pointe shoes is the model. So there's 3 models: classic, sleek, and sculpted. So classic is with a straight cut from the metatarsal to the heel. The sleek is with a tapered cut from the metatarsal to the heel. And the sculpted fit starts its taper here in the midfoot. It's more of kind of a waisted fit. So it kind of sucks in right there at the midfoot. That's the model that I think that would look really nice on your foot, the sculpted foot fit. That's also going to kind of eliminate the bagginess you have on the side of these Nicolai pointe shoes.
Yeah.
And so because you do have some width in the metatarsal, so we want to accommodate for that. But when looking at your feet from that bird's eye view, which is why that's so helpful, you have a bit of a taper back to the heel, right? And most people do. Your heel and your metatarsal aren't the same. But your taper starts here at the midfoot. So that's what's really great about this model. And it's really looks really nice on the arch for people with that kind of shape of foot, right? So the next thing we want to talk about is the length. So in the sculpted fit, we usually go about a size and a half longer than US ladies street shoes. Okay, so if you're about an 8.5, we'd be about a 10 in these because you're an 8.5, 9, so we're a 10, 10.5 in these for the length. The next part is the width. So obviously we know what the width. So the 3X that you have now, I think you'd probably be about a medium in the width. You're not super narrow, you're not super wide. Right. I think the medium is going to be fine. And then the next part is the box. So this part right here, we have 5 different box shapes: 2, 3, 3 plus, 4, and 5. So the smaller the number, the more tapered and narrow the box is. So a 2 is really super duper tapered and narrow. A 5 is really square and boxy. You don't need either of those, right? Somewhere in the middle, I think, is fine for you. I'm thinking either a 3 plus or a 4. So I'm going to send you a picture of these boxes in the email as well, just so you can kind of have a visual of what they look like.
Okay, cool.
So we want something that has some taper to the front because your toes have taper, right? We want to give you some lateral support in the front so that it's not just so square that you're just sinking right into it. But we also don't want something so tapered that you can't get all the way in the shoe, because that's kind of what it looks like with your Nicolai pointe shoes. When I see you go up in parallel onto releve, it looks like your foot is struggling to get all the way in the shoe. And so we need to give you something that your foot can get all the way into so that you can access the full mobility of your foot, right? So I think a 3 plus or a 4, it just kind of depends. If you want a little more taper to it, then the 3 plus. If you want something that's a little bit more square, then the 4. The 3 plus is going to be more similar to the Dream Point that you have right now. And then the next part is going to be the shank. So we also have 5 different shank strengths. And so the thing about our pointe shoes, right, is the shank and the box are made of one piece of flexible polymer, and that never changes. So the shoe will eventually die. The satin, the cement starts breaking down. You'll start sinking in the shoe, right? But they do last about 3 to 5 times longer than a traditionally made pointe shoe. And the shank of it never changes. So we really want to be sure that you like the shank strength, because it's not like when you get a traditional shoe and you're like, oh, these are really hard, but in 3 or 4 classes, they'll be perfect.
Yeah.
That's not really how these work, right? So we want to be sure that the shank is kind of perfect in how you like it straight out of the bag. So do you prefer your shoes when they're like brand new? Do you prefer them 2-3 classes in, or do you prefer them when they're almost dead?
I would say the sweet spot for me is about like the 4th class in. like definitely after I've been working through them quite a bit. I do not like them straight out the straight out the box. Yeah, so I would say like in the middle range, not like completely dead, but definitely I've already broken them in and worn them like about 4 or 5 times in class.
Okay. All right, that's good to know. So I'd say supple, which is our medium, supple, or the one down from that, which is feather flex. I wouldn't do the 2 harder ones. I probably wouldn't do our softest one, pianissimo. We could kind of play with that once you get your first pair. And then, of course, the more you know and the more you try, then we can kind of tweak and change different things. But to start out with, I would say supple or feather flex for your shank. So the middle one and then one down from that. So it has some nice flexibility to it. And the next part is the vamp. So it comes standard with a deep vamp, which I think is fine for you. We have a deep vamp and a low vamp. The standard deep vamp I think is fine. And then the next part is the heel. So our sculpted fit comes standard with a high heel or a low heel. You could do either one. Other dancers kind of like the sleeker look of having the lower heel. Do you have a heel preference, or it doesn't really matter?
I would say a high heel, just because I've had bad experiences with the heel popping off before when they were too low. So
Gotcha. Yeah, perfect. A high heel then. So again, I'm going to email all this to you, but just to kind of recap, I think a sculpted 10 or 10 and a half medium, 3+ or 4 box, supple or feather flex shank, deep vamp, high heel. Does that all kind of sound about what you were thinking?
That sounds most logical. Yeah. I mean, I looked at the website and I saw like how you could just like choose all the different. It's like kind of like going to a pizza place to like Blaze Pizza and like, you know, like, and it's not like Pizza Hut where it's like pre-made, you know, so.
Exactly. There's a lot of different options. Which is what's so great. They're so customizable, but it can be confusing if you're like not sure what direction to go in. So that's why we're here, right? So I'll give you a timeline on those if you wanted to order them from us, so you know how long they would take. And then, of course, feel free to respond to my email if you think of any other questions for me.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I just finished with Greer on the Zooms. It might take a little while to get the shoes. Once I get the shoes, I will do a follow-up video, so y'all have to stay tuned for that. All right, well, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy, stay safe, keep on dancing, and I will see y'all soon. Baka baka.